Dan, thanks for taking the time out for the reflection this week. We're just going to talk about Saturday's match at Rotherham. I guess if we could start with your initial thoughts on the defeat.
Yeah, I think it's initially it was very much a feeling of frustration. A game that we felt like we should have come out of it with a minimum of a point. Whilst the performance, we certainly see areas that we could improve on. We had good moments in that game that we just didn't quite turn into the opportunity that it should have been. So yeah, definitely a feeling of frustration. A game missed really in terms of taking that opportunity. But as always, we try and be consistent with our processes and try and learn from it and be better off the back of it.
You say in some respects it was a bit of a game of fine margins because there were a couple of opportunities towards the end, maybe that chance for Sonny where Josh just headed across the box, and then Josh's offside goal, on a different day that may have been given, or we had an opportunity to maybe come away with a point. Yeah,
like you say, that was fine margins. I always think if you've allowed a game to come down to those fine margins, then there's definitely areas within it that you need to perform better. Whether it was the final pass, we actually got into some great areas that the XG won't show. Didn't end up with a shot on target or a real clear chance, but actually we're in a brilliant position, and if we can find that last pass, if the player makes the run that they need to make, I think on another day we could easily have scored a goal in that moment. But yeah, like you say, when you go away from home, you know you have to be very good. You can't open the door up to chance or a moment of a ricochet or a bounce going against you. And we certainly know that. I think the good thing is we know we can play better than that. I know we've been inconsistent this season, but I actually think the good thing is in the performances that we've won, we've shown the level we're capable of getting to. And it's about us just trying to find that level more often.
Obviously there's no good time to concede, but to concede that close to half time as well, does that change how you approach half time as well? Is that quite frustrating in itself that going in at level, it could have been a different emphasis for the start of the second half? Yeah, definitely.
I think it's always a case that we were always going to look for areas that we could improve in that second half. The first half, there were definitely parts to it that we needed to be better with. There were definitely ways that we needed to get to the final third with more control and more consistency, and then sustain the attacks longer. There were a couple elements within the out of possession that we felt like we could tweak and improve. And don't get me wrong, it is definitely a lot easier to do that from 0-0. It creates a different feeling. But I think actually we felt like the clips that we were going to show the players, the things that we were going to talk about, whilst that 0-0 would have been great to get us to 1-0 up, actually they were the things that were going to get us back in the game as well. So it didn't change too much. It changes the feeling for the players, but it didn't really change what we were going to discuss with them.
What do you think are the key things that we can learn and take from this game?
I think when we go into these type of opposition, there's not as much structure that you can give the players because there's a slightly more chaotic nature to the game. The way that they press, the way that they play forwards and they run forwards, it is challenging. But I think what you'll find in this league is there's a lot of similarities and patterns between different teams, and when you face the next team that plays in a similar vein, it's about understanding how do you create control in those moments, how do you then turn that control into opportunities and sustained attacks, and then how do you limit the chances that they can create off the back of their threats. So I think there's definitely learning that we can take from that game and take into similar opponents in the future.
I guess the players must be frustrated with the result as well. What have you seen from them in training so far this week?
Well, obviously yesterday was a recovery day. Today's the first day we've been back in training, and the thing I liked about training today was there was a little bit of a bite, a little bit of frustration that still had to come out from Saturday. We try and be very consistent with the way that we plan, the way that we review games, the way that we put in place our processes, and that doesn't change. And the difficult thing probably for fans to hear is actually the players trained exceptionally well last week. And whilst we're striving for consistency on a Saturday, I think the players are in a good place in terms of the consistency they're training with. We now know the next hurdle is to then put that onto the pitch. But I think the one thing the players can take great confidence from is knowing that they are putting in those habits on a daily basis, so that when they're under pressure on a Saturday, they can revert back to those habits. They can revert back to the things that they've practiced over a sustained period of time. And I hope that when they're in those moments of pressure, that gives them confidence.
And a positive to come out of the game, obviously, the 3 deadline day signings of Andrew, Akil and Carlos all got minutes there as well, and kind of can embed themselves into the team straight away.
Yeah, definitely. I think the way they came in, I think they lifted the group last week. The way they came in and added to training was a big part of it. They've all got different experiences, different energy, the way that they've come into the group, but really like the way that they've integrated into the group. Good start. I think they've not only got on with the players, but I think they're already earning their respect, and I think there's an excitement within the group for what they can bring, but also an understanding of the level of competition that's going to then be in place.
And Akil looked very direct and, was willing to take on players, someone that's probably going to get fans off their seats and excited this season.
Yeah, we hope so. He's got a great energy. Akil, when he's come in, he's open to learning, he wants to improve on a personal level, but what I like about him from a young player is he understands that he has a role to play within the team, and he's open to learning the way that we play and then putting his individual stamp on that. So yeah, a good start. We all know with young players there's going to be highs and lows within his first loan, but definitely a good start, and I hope that he's a player that the fans can really get behind.
We've talked about consistency a lot as well. Is that something that is difficult and kind of frustrating for you guys at the moment, because we're following up a really good win with like a narrow defeat, and it's trying to get, how do we get that consistency that we're looking for in performances and results?
Yeah, it's frustrating because in a lot of ways in the good performances we've shown what we're capable of, but I mean, we understand, I think 5 out of the 7 squads that we've put out, teams that we've put out in the league this season, have had an average age of under 25 years old. If you look at similar teams with those ages in the league, there are inconsistencies within a lot of them, barring Cardiff. So yeah, it's frustrating, but if there's one thing this football club's done well over the last 20 years, it's understanding that you have to be patient with a project, whether that is a club project or an individual player. That's something that we've done in a unique way over the last 20 years of being fan owned, and I think it's something that stands us in good stead. It's something that gives the players the confidence and the time to find themselves, and I hope it's something that we continue to have as a strength within our football club. We're
hoping to welcome, Sweens, John Lee, Sill, players like that back into the team as well, which gives you, a headache for selection probably as well. But is that can only be a positive, and that competition for places is only just going to get stronger, isn't it?
Yeah, the competition drives the level on a daily basis, and like we say, everyone's striving for consistency on a Saturday. The consistency comes from their habits during the week, and if that competition for places through those players returning drives that level, then that's when we'll see the consistency on the weekend. And I think it's really important for us, again, that word of patience, to make sure that when we get those players back, they're at a physical place where they're safe to return from the injury, but they're also at a performance level where they can showcase what they can bring to the team. So that takes time, that takes again a process that we have to follow, and every one of those is going to be individually managed to the best standard that we possibly can.
Looking ahead to Saturday as well, we host Port Vale, a side that haven't tasted victory yet in the league, but we know they're really going to be pushing for that on Saturday, and they're going to be a tough opposition. Yeah,
definitely. I think Port Vale bring a threat with them that most promoted teams do, which is there's a consistency in terms of the manager working with his players. There's an understanding of what he wants. I would say, again, we spoke at the start of this about fine margins. The games that we've lost, be it Mansfield by a goal, be it Doncaster by a goal, or be it Saturday by a goal, they've had close games. They've had moments in games where they've actually been excellent, and they're looking to find consistency. But like I said, with a Rotherham preparation and with this, we're really trying to focus on what we bring. And the nice thing is, like I said earlier, we've shown what we're capable of. It's about us reflecting on that and trying to find that on this Saturday to come and understanding what the best version of us really looks like.
I think we've probably shown that in those matches against Blackpool and Peterborough at home as well, those strong wins, and they're backed by the City faithful as well, who really helped us get over the line in both of those games, and that's kind of what you get that as a given, but it's what you'd hope for on Saturday.
Well, I think you look at those games, it's very easy to see sort of quite a big scoreline in them, but there was moments in each of those games where we were a little bit unsure whether it's the start, the middle or the end of those games, and the fans were right behind us. And I think that's the important thing, is to understand that Saturday there's going to be a point where we really need them, and we've got to play our part within that as well to give them something to get behind. But there's going to be a moment where we need them, and to be fair to the fans, they've always been there for us and always been there for the players, and that's why I think that you'll always see at the end of the games the appreciation that we have for them, because we understand the roles they've played in those wins so far and the role they're going to play again in another challenging season.
So EFL Youth Development Week starts this week as well. Obviously, the EFL used this to highlight, success stories in academies and players making their first team debuts. And, for us, that's an all year round thing. The academy is such a huge part of this football club, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. And I think the EFL celebrates a lot of the on-pitch success, but I think it's important that we don't forget the role we have to play in a lot of these young people's lives. That's one of the things that certainly makes me proudest in the time I've been a part of the club is the way that we try and have the utmost care for the person, before, during and after their time as a footballer within the club. It's a brilliant week to celebrate the successes, but it's also important that we understand our role within their lives as much as on the pitch.
And just this season as well, obviously George Birch and Kieran Wilson have made their first team debuts in the league, so yet more success that we can shout about.
Yeah, again, that's wonderful for them, brilliant for their family, a fantastic advert for the work that's been done over numerous years before they get into the first team. But I think the biggest role that those young players do is they provide a connection between the players and the fans, and there's something that the fans can identify with, and that's why it's such an important part of us as a football club. It's part of our DNA, it's what makes us unique, and it's a huge part of what we want to continue to do. Again, we're doing it at the highest level the club's done this at, so there's always challenges that come with it, but it's brilliant to see the likes of Kieran, the likes of Liam Oakes, whether it's Charlie Cummins, George Burks that's in with it, alongside the players that we also bring to the club, looking to develop and make them the best players they possibly can be.
It's a huge step up from 18s to first team football, and you've worked with a lot of these players over years as well. How does your role kind of get them prepared for that, alongside the pitch, but that environmental change as well, to get used to first team football? Because that must be different experience being in that changing room.
Yeah, it is different. I think I can't underestimate the role that the senior players also play with those, helping those boys adjust to the environment. The manager's very clear on the types of characters that he brings to this football club to support and aid the development of those young players. So they play a huge role within that as well. And it's something that we try and do on a very individual basis. Everyone has a different journey, and it's just about understanding how to support them to the best of our ability throughout that.